Robert joined our church. And when I came back, Harriet was in my seat. So I moved an aisle back. And also in Sunday school, she was in my seat. And I just moved over. And Harriet has been there ever since.
Who's giving this one?
Set aside. Right, aside. Yeah, the Harriet story.
Well, you know, participating in the territory.
That's right.
Anyhow, I've got to be cognizant of that because I sit in west side, 6th aisle, and I don't want to make any mistakes getting there one aisle too soon. Well, somebody will have to break up a fight. All right, there's more to tell. Nancy's family, I'm going to leave that to her. She's got a lot of people who love her. But her chief love today is a little fellow by the name of Miss Daisy. And I know how much she knows Miss Daisy because the first time I saw Daisy, she got excited and pee all over my ankle. And thinking that I was going to get some help, emotional help from Nancy, she says to Daisy, says, "Are you through, dear?" As if Carl might have another sock if this didn't work. She loves animals. Let's see. One of the things that Nancy's done so well for a long time is to organize once a year a tie-up on the lake. Very patriotic, well done. If you've never been there, maybe she'll invite you. She invites me about once every 10 years.
Well, I need, if you got a boat, come see me and I'll send you an invitation if you invite people in our church.
If you don't know what it is, the boats come together, they bind together. You can walk from one to another. There's about 25 of them. Everybody's got food to offer you as you're going through meeting people. And then
It's like 5 o'clock. You're not supposed to speak of the party that shall not be spoken about.
Right, Sunday.
But they do recall the people that we've lost during the past year, and their names are read. And it finishes with the Star Spangled Banner, so something well done, and Nancy's been in charge of that for a long time, and it's been fun. I would describe Nancy as kind of an optimist tied to a mission. Now, she'll understand the word mission because she comes from a military family, but she's always been an optimist, and she's always getting something done, going someplace or accomplishing something. And you know, an optimist sees an opportunity, and I gotta get this right. Sees an opportunity in every calamity. A pessimist sees a calamity in every opportunity. She's an optimist. And I can recall this when I first joined the church about 7 years ago. I was on the vestry at that time, and I was hearing these reports from Joanne about the dire need of finances and our problems. We were down to our last $25,000 in the bank, and we were about to lose our pastor who was retiring. Things didn't look good. There was some talk of our becoming a mission church even. And this was all coming to me, and I didn't want that to happen. So I was talking to Nancy one day about that, and let's see, Nancy's, if I can get her words right, anyhow, she told me, she said, "Carl, don't be so concerned. Wait, and good things are about to happen." And I say, what is she thinking? I mean, we're up to our elbows in alligators here. But after that, nothing but good things have happened. So I'm going to let Nancy fill in the rest of the story.
But, you know, as we all know, when we do this, it gives us an opportunity to sort through stuff. So what I first did, I went through some photo albums because I have probably 20, 25, way too many photos. And I just made a composite of some pictures of my childhood, or, you know, before Bill, some of those, you know, the baby pictures, boyfriend pictures, high school pictures, and I wanted baby pictures, teaching in Clark, that was a picture Bill took of me, and he loved it when we were dating. That was his girlfriend's picture. But then high school, and I passed all at once. And then teaching school in Cocoa Beach, and then overseas. So I will just start these around. While I'm talking, you can chew gum and look at pictures.
That's two things. We can do
Yes,
that.
two things at a time. Then, all right. Talking with Marta last year when this was going on, I was telling her a few things about my life, and she says, "It sure does sound like you've had a Forrest Gump life." And that got me to thinking she was right. I've just been in the right place at the right time and had some really fabulous things happen. So you're going to hear about my Forrest Gump life. Further on you hear, but I'll send this around. One of them, I was teaching school in the Philippines, and you'll hear more about it, when the POWs came back. And this was by Andy Warhol minute, where this picture went around the world. It was in the paper. He was my POW, and it just so happened I had 17 third grades that I was a coordinator of, so I wasn't a classroom teacher, and the POWs came to the elementary school. Well, this fella, he gets out of the car, and they only had 3 of them, and I looked at the name and I went, "Oh, is that you?" I'd been wearing his bracelet. You know, we all wore the POW bracelets when the guys were, POWs. Well, this fella was not married, because all the rest of the wives were back in the States. They brought the fellas to Clark to check them out before they sent them home. So they were able to take our story, and it went around the world. People around the world. And this was from the Stars and Stripes picture. So I'll send that around. That's one of my Forrest Gump moments. Okay, so I'll get started. So it all starts, my parents were Thomas and Forrest Graham. That should have been a preamble of what was to come with, my parents. I was born July 24th, 1944. My folks already had a brother, and Dad was temporarily back from the war in Europe for some training with his troops. And he was a major at the time. I was told they decided to make another baby. Mother had said, I'm tied down with one, I might as well have another. So, while Dad was out on maneuvers at Fort Bragg, Dad arranged to rent a room from a farmer, because he was a commander, troop commander. So, friends and family shared gas rations so Mother could go and meet him and have a rendezvous. Well, in the middle of the night, the enemy troops stormed in on them and captured Dad. That was the last time Mom saw him until I was almost 2 years old. Because he was captured and then, we went back. Okay. And see, that was July 24th, 1944. Dad returned to Europe. Well, it was 9 months before July 24th, excuse me. Dad returned to Europe, and in June took his troops in for an early landing in Normandy. Years later, watching a black and white war movie with him, I commented, "Bet they were scared." And he quietly said, "We were." And to this day, I've regretted not asking him more details. But our generation, we just didn't talk to him. They told us what they wanted us to know. And I've often wondered more. But I was later told that those who elected to continue a military career were to remain in Europe so that the soldiers that were mustering out could return home and get back to civilian life. So that's why I was 2 years old before Dad saw me. I did see years later V-mail, the V-mail, where they would write letters and then take pictures of them, and then they would send the wives photos. I don't have any of that, but they were really fascinating. Miniature. And in the V-mail, Dad wrote that fall to Mom, and of course I was long born, expressing he assumed the baby had been born, but he was still waiting the news, because see, he was in France at the time. When he did return, my younger brother, 9 months later, was added to the family. When I was 4, we went to the Panama Canal Zone. We lived there 4 years, and I started school. And also, my baby sister was born in Panama. On a tour to Panama 3 years ago, the bus passed right by this building, said Balboa Elementary School. And I recognized it immediately. That was where I went to 1st and 2nd grade. It's still a school, the sign was there, and I hollered, wait, stop. I had to stop the bus, and I got out and took a picture of where I mean, just right around Balboa Elementary School. And so that really was, you know, one of the Forrest Gump moments there. But anyway, my grade school memories were frequent air raids where the teacher would, the air raids would go off. Because remember, this is in the, this is 49, 50, Cold War. And the Panama Canal was very, very important, and they were afraid it was going to get bombed. So the teacher would get up and close the blackout curtains, and we would get under the desk. They were really fearful of enemy bombing the canal zone. But you know, when you're in the 1st grade, the air raids go off, you get under the desk, and you do that. So that was kind of a Forrest Gump moment, you know. And then Dad's next assignment was at Fort Carson, Colorado, where he was commander of the 4th Field Artillery Battalion back then. And it was the home of the Army's last horses and mules. That was the last regiment of horses and mules. Since I was a colonel's daughter, I frequently got to go out horseback riding. We lived in converted Army barracks. You know, that was the best they could do for the quarters. And next to us was a field where the GIs were training for combat in Korea. Well, when they finished in the afternoon, we kids would go out and play War in the Foxholes. You know, that was you know, right there. Well, since we were just playing, we thought it was okay to use the naughty words we heard the soldiers using. We soon learned, not around grown-ups. Our next move was up to Newport, Rhode Island, where Dad attended the Naval War College. It was also the year for the big Jackie and Jack Kennedy wedding. When friends and family would visit, we would take them to where all the high society events were happening. To me, the Newport mansions were a fairy tale world. I mean, they were just big, beautiful mansions, like going to Disney World before Disney World was ever opened up. And that was kind of a a Forrest Gump moment. Being there while that area was getting ready for the big social event. Then Dad was assigned to be the Army advisor for the 7th Fleet over the Pacific. Mother moved us back to Fayetteville to be with her family in North Carolina. That was in 1955, and Mom was constantly reading the newspapers. I mean, I'm now in the 5th grade, really not aware, but when I looked it up, because it was in January of '55 that the Formosa Resolution was approved by both houses in Congress, authorizing Eisenhower to use U.S. forces to defend the ROC and possessions of the Taiwan Straits, because it was Formosa before, against attack. And so the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, warned the U.S. against using nuclear weapons. I mean, it was really the time in our country, we were not aware of it, I wasn't aware of it, that we were really close to nuclear incidents. And the U.S. was seriously considering a nuclear strike. No wonder there was a lot of apprehension in the House. You know, and I didn't know it. But in researching this information, I found that the issue of evacuation was not in any sense frivolous, because it was the height of the Cold War. And so, I wrote all about that, about the Formosa Straits. So, and I went into detail, but you don't need to know that, except There was a major international crisis, as illustrated by Eisenhower's biographer, who observed that the United States in early '55 came closer to using atomic weapons than any other time in the Eisenhower administration. And here, Dad was at that time, the Army advisor to Admiral Pride of the 7th Fleet. And you know, I was just a kid. All right, his next assignment after that was the Pentagon, because he had to go brief them at the Pentagon. I lived in Northern Virginia from 5th grade through 9th grade. It was a quintessential 50s suburban living, with houses in the development being identical split levels, complete with all of the appliances being turquoise. Yes. And my dad had grown up in St. Augustine and graduated from the University of Florida. We had friends who helped him get assigned to command the ROTC in Gainesville. There, I had my first convertible, an MG Midget, and loved going visiting Dad on drill day. My best memories were when each Easter, as Carl noted, I gathered up my girlfriends and